"I'm not your property, Mr. Hargrove. I'm a human being." The words ripped through the penthouse boardroom like a gunshot. 27 heads snap toward the voice. Toward her. Toward the black woman in a navy blue maid's uniform standing in the center of a room full of millionaires. Her chest heaving. Her hands shaking. Her voice still echoing off marble walls. Janelle didn't plan this. 30 seconds ago, she was refilling water glasses, invisible like always. Then Ethan Hargrove snapped his fingers at her, actually snapped them like she was a dog. And something inside her shattered louder than the crystal vase, now scattered across the floor. Gasps ripple through the room. Investors freeze mid-sip of their bourbon. Assistants stare with mouths half open. Someone's phone clatters onto the conference table. Because the maid just yelled at her billionaire boss. In front of everyone. During the biggest deal of the quarter. Everyone thinks she's lost her mind. Hargrove stands at the head of the table, 6'3" of tailored power and ice-cold control, staring at Janelle like she's a stain on his perfectly pressed suit. His jaw tightens. His fingers curl against the mahogany edge. The silence that follows feels like drowning. You can see it on every face in that room. The shock, the discomfort, the second-hand embarrassment. They're waiting for her to crumble, to apologize, to remember her place. But Janelle's grandmother didn't raise a woman who bows to men who think money makes them gods. Her voice came out louder than she expected, stronger. Like 3 years of swallowing disrespect finally erupted all at once. 3 years of showing up at 5 a.m. to scrub floors for a man who never once learned her last name. 3 years of being treated like furniture with a pulse. She dropped that vase on purpose. Because sometimes you have to break something expensive to make people see you're not a ghost. Hit subscribe if you believe no one deserves to be treated like trash. Only cowards defend arrogance. An older investor near the window clears his throat, uncomfortable. A younger woman pretends to check her laptop. But nobody leaves. Nobody moves. Because what happens next could change everything. Hargrove finally speaks, his voice low and dangerous, the kind of tone that makes lawyers sweat. "Do you understand what you just did?" Janelle's heart slams against her ribs. Her palms are slick with sweat. Every instinct screams at her to apologize, to run, to disappear back into the walls where she belongs. But she doesn't. "I understand perfectly." Her voice cracks on the last word, betraying the terror clawing at her throat. But she doesn't look away, doesn't bend, doesn't run. A woman in the third row whispers something urgent to the man beside her. Phones start lifting, subtle at first, then bolder. People recording a moment they know they shouldn't witness, but can't look away from. This isn't just a maid losing her temper. This is a match striking in a room soaked in gasoline. And everyone feels it. Hargrove takes one step forward. Just one. But it's enough to make the oxygen feel thinner. The walls feel closer. His eyes lock on hers, cold, calculating. The eyes of a man who's crushed bigger threats than a woman in a cleaning uniform. You just made the worst mistake of your life. Janelle's knees want to buckle. Her mouth goes dry. But somewhere deep in her chest, beneath the fear, something burns hotter than self-preservation. Because she knows something they don't. Something that's been eating at her for weeks. Something that makes this moment less about courage and more about survival. The truth is about to come out. And when it does, everyone in this room will realize she wasn't crazy. She was the only sane person here. Ethan Hargrove's smile appears slowly, like frost spreading across glass. It's not a kind smile. It's the smile of a predator who just realized his prey thinks it can fight back. He tilts his head, studying Janelle the way you'd study an insect before deciding whether to crush it or let it suffer. "You have no idea who you're talking to." His voice drops lower, quieter, which somehow makes it 10 times worse. The people in the room lean forward without realizing it, pulled into the gravity of something catastrophic unfolding. Janelle's hands ball into fists. Her nails dig into her palms hard enough to leave marks, but the pain keeps her anchored, keeps her from collapsing under the weight of 27 stares and one billionaire's rage. But she's done being silent. I know exactly who I'm talking to. Her voice shakes, she can't stop it, but the words punch through fear and consequence, and every rational thought screaming at her to shut up. A man who destroys lives and calls it business. The room detonates. Whispers explode across the table. Someone gasps loud enough to echo. Another person mutters, "Jesus Christ," under their breath. Phones lift higher now, no longer hiding, recording every second of the billionaire getting destroyed by the woman who empties his trash. Hargrove's smile dies instantly. His eyes go dark, not angry, something colder, something lethal. He takes another step closer, and Janelle forces herself not to move back, not to give him the satisfaction of seeing her retreat. "You think you know me?" His voice barely rises above a whisper, but it cuts through every conversation in the room. "You clean my floors. You refill my coffee. You exist in my world because I allow it." Janelle's throat tightens. Tears burn hot behind her eyes, but she blinks them back with everything she has left. "I exist because I'm a person, not because you allow anything." Her voice cracks again, but this time it sounds less like weakness and more like truth ripping its way out of her chest. "I've watched you for 3 years, Mr. Hargrove. I've seen how you operate when the cameras aren't rolling. How you fired 63 employees right before Christmas because it made your quarterly numbers look prettier. How you laughed about families losing their homes while you bought another penthouse you'll visit twice." The whispers grow louder, angrier. An investor near the door shifts in his seat, suddenly uncomfortable. A young assistant's eyes go wide, not with shock, but with recognition, like she's seen the same things and never had the guts to name them out loud. Hargrove's jaw clenches, so tight you can see the muscle twitch beneath his skin. "Careful," he says, voice like a knife sliding between ribs. "You're about to make a very expensive mistake." Janelle laughs, a sharp, bitter sound that surprises even her. "Expensive for who? I don't have anything you can take. You already pay me barely enough to keep the lights on. You already treat me like I'm invisible unless you need something. What else can you possibly do to me?" The room holds its breath. Because she's right. And everyone knows it. When you have nothing left to lose, power loses its teeth. Hargrove leans in closer, close enough that only Janelle can hear his next words, low and venomous enough to kill. "I can make sure you never work again. Not just here, anywhere. I can bury your name so deep that no one will remember you existed." Janelle meets his eyes, and for the first time since this nightmare started, her voice steadies. "Then do it. But you'll have to look me in the eye while you destroy me." For 3 endless seconds, nobody moves. Nobody breathes. Hargrove stares at her like he's trying to calculate if she's fearless or suicidal. Maybe both. His hand twitches at his side, not violent, just uncertain, like he's never faced someone who refuses to break. Then something shifts in his expression. Something that looks almost like fear. Because Janelle isn't bluffing. And he can see it. He steps back. Just one step. But it feels like a crack splitting through concrete. "Get out." 2 words. Quiet. Final. Janelle doesn't move right away. She looks around the room, at the investors avoiding her gaze, at the assistants pretending they don't exist, at the phone still recording proof that this happened. "I'll leave," she says quietly, voice steadier than her legs. "But not because you told me to. Because I'm choosing to walk away from a man who thinks cruelty is currency." She turns toward the door, head high, hands trembling, heart hammering loud enough to drown out the whispers exploding behind her. Behind her, chaos erupts. Phones keep recording. Conversations break out in heated bursts. The billionaire stands frozen at the head of the table, his empire suddenly feeling fragile. Janelle reaches the door and pauses, hand on the brass handle. She doesn't look back. doesn't give him the satisfaction. Because some battles you win by refusing to disappear. And some truths are worth losing everything to tell. What she doesn't say, what nobody in that room knows yet, is that she has proof. Real proof. The kind that could turn Ethan Hargrove's empire into rubble. And in 48 hours, the whole world is going to see it. Janelle doesn't leave. Not yet. Instead, she reaches into the pocket of her uniform, the one with the small tear near the hem that she keeps meaning to fix, and pulls out a USB drive. Small, silver, unremarkable. She slams it onto the conference table hard enough to make 3 people jump. You think I'm just a maid? Her voice cuts through the chaos like a blade through silk. The room goes silent again, but this time it's different. This time, curiosity mixes with the fear. Then explain this. Ethan's eyes drop to the USB drive, then snap back to her face. His expression doesn't change, but something flickers behind his eyes. Something that looks like panic wrapped in expensive cologne and arrogance. What is that? His voice stays controlled, but there's an edge now. A crack in the foundation. Janelle's hands stop shaking. Her voice steadies. Because this moment right here, is what she's been waiting for since the day she found that laptop sitting open in his office. Proof. One word. But it lands like a bomb. Proof of what your company did to families in Queens. How Silverline Development forced 83 households out of their homes under fake urban renewal permits. How you paid off inspectors to condemn buildings that weren't actually condemned. How you destroyed an entire neighborhood to build luxury condos nobody asked for. The room erupts. Investors lean forward, eyes wide. Assistants glance at each other, confusion mixing with horror. An older man near the back pulls out his phone and starts typing furiously. Ethan's face goes pale, then red, then pale again. His jaw works like he's chewing glass. You have no idea what you're talking about. But Janelle can see it now, the fear bleeding through his rage like ink through paper. I have every idea. Because my mother's name is on that list. The words hit the room like a freight train. She pulls the USB drive back, clutching it in her fist like it's the only thing keeping her alive. Which, right now it might be. Vivian Clark. Unit 4B. You sent her an eviction notice 3 weeks ago. Said the building was structurally unsound. Said she had 30 days to get out or face legal action. Her voice cracks, but she pushes through. My mother has lived in that apartment for 17 years. Raised me there. Paid rent every month without fail. And you're kicking her out so you can turn her home into a rooftop pool for people who'll never remember her name. Silence. The kind of silence that feels like the world just tilted off its axis. An investor near the window speaks up, voice tight. Ethan, is this true? Hargrove's eyes never leave Janelle's face. His hands grip the table edge, so hard his knuckles go white. That project was approved through all proper channels. Proper channels you paid for, Janelle shoots back. I've seen the emails. The bank transfers. The inspector reports that magically changed overnight. She holds up the USB drive, letting everyone see it. It's all here. Every dirty deal. Every forged signature. Every family you threw away like garbage because their zip code didn't fit your profit margins. Comment, I stand with truth. If you'd have done what she did, silence protects the guilty. Phones are everywhere now. Recording. Typing. Calling. The story is already leaking beyond these walls, spreading like wildfire through group chats and news tips and social media feeds. Ethan finally moves. He stands up slowly, deliberately, like a king rising from a throne that's suddenly made of splinters. You just committed career suicide. Janelle laughs, sharp and bitter and free. My career? I scrub toilets for a living because people like you made sure people like me never get anything better. You can't take what I never had. She takes a step toward the door, then pauses. But you have everything to lose. And now everyone's watching. The USB drive feels heavy in her palm. Heavier than it should. Because it's not just data on a chip, it's her mother's future. Her neighbors' futures. Proof that the system everyone trusts is rotten from the inside. An assistant near the back stands up, voice shaking but loud enough to hear. I want to see what's on that drive. Then another voice. Me too. Then another. Ethan's face goes dark. His hands ball into fists at his sides. Nobody is seeing anything. This meeting is over. Security. But his voice doesn't carry the same weight anymore. Because the room just watched a maid stand up to a billionaire and survive. And now they're wondering what else they don't know. Janelle backs toward the door, clutching the USB drive like a lifeline. She doesn't know what happens next. Doesn't know if this will change anything, or if she just destroyed her life for nothing. But she knows one thing. The truth is out now. And you can't put that back in a box. The investors erupt into chaos. Voices overlap, demanding answers, demanding to see the files, demanding Ethan explain why this is the first they're hearing about Silverline's methods. Ethan, if there's even a hint of fraud. We need full transparency immediately. This could sink the entire deal. Hargrove slams his palm on the table, silencing them instantly. Security. His voice cracks like a whip. Two men in black suits appear in the doorway. Within seconds, earpieces glowing, hands ready. Remove her. Now. But even as he gives the order, something else is happening behind his eyes. Something that looks like panic wearing a mask of rage. Because Ethan Hargrove didn't get to the top of the real estate game by being careless. He's meticulous. Paranoid even. Every file gets encrypted. Every trail gets buried. Every loose end gets tied. He deleted those Silverline files himself. 3 hours ago. Personally. Watched them vanish from the server with his own eyes. So how does she have them? His mind rewinds, frame by frame, searching for the crack in his armor. Janelle was in his office this morning. Brought coffee. Refilled the water pitcher. But she was only there for 90 seconds, maybe less. Not enough time to access his computer. Not enough time to bypass security protocols. Unless his blood runs cold. Unless someone gave them to her. The realization hits him like ice water. His eyes scan the room, suddenly seeing everyone differently. The investors watching with too much interest. The assistants avoiding his gaze. The junior partners who've been unusually quiet. Someone close leaked those files. Someone who knew where they were buried. Someone who wanted Janelle to be the weapon. His chief counsel, Marcus, sits 3 seats down, face carefully neutral. Too neutral. The kind of neutral that takes effort. Ethan's jaw clenches. Marcus has been with him for 6 years. Helped structure every deal. Knew every secret. Had access to everything. And 2 weeks ago, Ethan passed him over for a promotion. Gave it to someone younger. Someone cheaper. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. This wasn't about Janelle at all. She's just a match. Someone else poured the gasoline. Ethan's hands shake with fury he can barely contain. He's been outplayed. Humiliated. In front of investors who already had doubts. By a maid and a traitor he trusted. Security reaches Janelle, gripping her arms. She doesn't resist, but she doesn't make it easy either. Let me go. Her voice echoes across the marble. Ethan forces his face into something resembling control. Forces his voice to stay level even though he wants to scream. Get her out of my building. And if she steps foot on my property again, I want her arrested for trespassing and theft. But inside his mind is racing, calculating, planning revenge. Because if Marcus thinks he can destroy Ethan Hargrove and walk away clean, he's about to learn a very expensive lesson. Nobody betrays him and survives. Earlier that day, 6 hours before everything exploded, Janelle pushed the cleaning cart down the hallway of Hargrove Tower's executive floor, the wheels squeaking softly against polished marble. 5:15 in the morning. The building empty except for security guards and the occasional workaholic executive. She liked the quiet, liked being invisible. It made the work easier when you didn't have to smile and pretend you enjoyed serving people who looked through you like glass. Ethan's office sat at the end of the hall, double doors carved from wood that probably cost more than her car. She knocked twice, force of habit, then used her master keycard to slip inside. The office smelled like leather and expensive coffee. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, still dark except for streetlights and early morning traffic. She started with the trash, emptied the bin, wiped down the desk, straightened the chair. That's when she noticed the laptop. Still open. Screen glowing softly in the dim light. Ethan never left his laptop open. Never. He was obsessive about security, about privacy, about keeping his empire locked down tight. Janelle glanced toward the door. Empty hallway. No footsteps. No voices. She shouldn't look. She knew better. Knew that curiosity in places like this could get you fired or worse. But something pulled her closer. The screen showed a folder. Open. Files scattered across the display like evidence at a crime scene. Folder name: Silverline Project, Phase 2 Demolition. Her stomach dropped. She clicked once. Just once. Because sometimes you need to see the thing that's going to haunt you. A spreadsheet opened. Rows and rows of addresses. Names. Dates. All in Queens. All in her neighborhood. Her eyes scanned down, heart pounding louder with every line. Then she saw it. Unit 4B, Clark Vivian. Eviction notice issued September 28th. Her mother's name. Janelle's hands went numb. The room tilted sideways. She gripped the desk to keep from collapsing. They were taking her mother's home. The place Janelle grew up. The place her mother had poured 17 years of life into, scraping together rent every month, fighting to keep the lights on, refusing to give up even when the neighborhood started falling apart around them. And Ethan Hargrove, the man whose toilets she scrubbed, whose coffee she poured, whose floor she mopped, was the one destroying it. Her vision blurred. Tears burned hot, but she blinked them back. She grabbed the USB drive from her pocket, the one she kept for transferring photos at the library on her breaks, shoved it into the laptop port with shaking hands, dragged the folder, copied everything, watched the progress bar crawl across the screen like her life depended on it. Because it did. 47 seconds. That's how long it took to copy 3 years of corruption. She yanked the drive out, shoved it deep in her pocket, and backed away from the desk like it was radioactive. Her mother's face flashed through her mind. Strong, tired, proud. The woman who worked 2 jobs to keep Janelle in school, who never complained, who believed the system would protect them if they just followed the rules. Janelle's hands curled into fists. The system wasn't protecting anyone. It was crushing them. And the man responsible was sleeping peacefully in a penthouse while her mother faced homelessness. Not anymore. Security's grip on Janelle's arms tightens as they drag her toward the elevator. She doesn't fight, doesn't scream, just keeps her head up, eyes forward, refusing to give Ethan the satisfaction of seeing her break. Behind her, the boardroom erupts in shouting. Investors demanding explanations. Assistants whispering urgently. Phones ringing as the story starts leaking to the outside world. Ethan's voice cuts through the chaos like a chainsaw. You're done here. Done. I'll make sure every company in this city knows what you did. Janelle stops walking, forces security to stop with her. She turns in the elevator doorway, meeting Ethan's eyes one last time. Her voice comes out steady, clear, louder than it should be. You can throw me out, but you can't erase the truth. The elevator doors start to close, but her words echo across the marble, bouncing off glass and steel and the faces of people who'll remember this moment forever. Ethan stands frozen at the conference table, chest heaving, fists clenched so tight his nails draw blood. For the first time in his entire career, he feels something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. Fear. Not fear of losing money. Not fear of bad press. Fear of losing control. Fear that maybe, just maybe, he pushed too far this time. The elevator doors shut with a soft ding, swallowing Janelle into silence. Security releases her arms once they're alone in the descending box. One of them, the younger one, maybe 25, glances at her with something that might be respect. "That took guts," he mutters quietly. Janelle doesn't respond, just leans against the cold elevator wall, adrenaline crashing through her system like a wave pulling back from the shore. She just destroyed her life, lost her job, made an enemy of one of the most powerful men in the city. But she also told the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that truth will protect her mother and 82 other families from losing everything. The elevator reaches the lobby. Doors open. Morning light pours through glass walls. Janelle steps out into a world that suddenly feels bigger and more dangerous than it did 6 hours ago. Her phone buzzes. A text from her mother. "Baby, are you okay? Someone said they saw you on a video." Janelle's throat tightens. She doesn't know how to answer that. Because she's not okay. She's terrified. Unemployed. Probably about to be sued into oblivion. But she's also free. Free from bowing to a man who treats people like disposable property. Free from swallowing her voice every morning. Free from pretending that silence is safety. She walks out of Hargrove Tower into the October morning. USB drive burning in her pocket like a live coal. Somewhere above her, 47 floors up, Ethan Hargrove is making calls. Calling lawyers. Calling PR firms. Calling everyone who owes him favors. He's going to come for her. She knows that. But she's ready. Because the truth doesn't care how much money you have. And sometimes, the person you underestimate the most is the one who brings your empire crashing down. 3 hours later, the story detonates across every screen in the city. It starts with a grainy phone recording. Shaky footage of Janelle slamming the USB drive on the conference table. Her voice cracking with fury and truth. Someone in that boardroom uploaded it. Maybe an assistant tired of staying silent. Maybe an investor hedging bets. Doesn't matter who. What matters is it's everywhere now. Twitter explodes first. The video racks up 40,000 views in 20 minutes. Then 100,000. Then 500,000. Hashtags spawn like wildfire. Hashtag Silverline Scandal. Hashtag Queen's Evictions. Hashtag Janelle was right. Then the news outlets pick it up. Billionaire developer behind Queen's eviction scheme. Former employee alleges. Hargrove Empire faces fraud investigation after viral confrontation. Maid exposes corporate corruption. Families demand justice. The comments section turns savage within hours. This man belongs in prison, not a penthouse. How many families did he destroy while we celebrated him? She risked everything to tell the truth. That's a hero. Local news stations camp outside Hargrove Tower. Reporters shove microphones at anyone walking out the revolving doors, desperate for quotes, for confirmation, for blood in the water. Ethan's PR team scrambles. They release a statement by noon. Mr. Hargrove categorically denies any wrongdoing. Silverline Development followed all legal procedures. This is a disgruntled former employee spreading false allegations for attention. The internet laughs in their faces. Because within 2 hours, investigative journalists start digging. And what they find makes Ethan's statement look like gasoline on a fire. Building inspection reports that were clean one day, condemned the next. Bank transfers to city officials with convenient timing. Emails between Hargrove executives discussing accelerated displacement strategies. The evidence doesn't just point at Janelle being right. It points at a system designed to crush people who couldn't afford lawyers. By 3 p.m., 3 investors pull out of the Silverline deal. By 5 p.m., the city announces an investigation into permit fraud. By 7 p.m., Ethan's face is plastered across every news channel with the word scandal burning in red letters behind him. His phone won't stop ringing. Lawyers, board members, investors demanding answers. His assistant quit via email. His PR firm is reassessing their relationship with the brand. Subscribe if you believe justice always catches up. Manipulators never win forever. But here's the thing eating at Ethan more than the headlines, more than the lawsuits piling up, more than the empire cracking beneath his feet. He still doesn't understand how Janelle got those files. He deleted them, personally. Watched them vanish. So how did a maid with no technical skills, no access codes, no reason to even be near his computer, walk out with the one thing that could destroy him? The question gnaws at him like acid. Because if she didn't steal them herself, and the timeline doesn't add up for that, then someone gave them to her. Someone who wanted him exposed. Someone who wanted to watch him burn. And that terrifies him more than any viral video ever could. Somewhere in Queens, Janelle sits in her mother's apartment, watching the news with shaking hands. Her phone buzzes nonstop. Messages from reporters. Threats from Hargrove's lawyers. Support from strangers who've never met her, but believe her anyway. Her mother squeezes her hand, tears streaming down weathered cheeks. You did the right thing, baby. You stood up. Janelle nods, but she can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning, that the real storm hasn't even arrived yet. Because powerful men don't fall quietly. They take everyone down with them. Ethan stands alone in his penthouse, 47 floors above a city that suddenly feels like enemy territory. The silence is unbearable. No assistance. No calls he wants to answer. No investors kissing up to him with compliments wrapped in dollar signs. Just him and the view and the crushing weight of a day that ripped his world apart. He pours bourbon with shaking hands. The glass clinks against the crystal decanter. The sound too loud in the empty space. His penthouse used to feel like victory. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Furniture that costs more than most people make in a year. Art on the walls from auctions where he outbid millionaires just to prove he could. Now it feels like a cage made of glass and money. He drinks. The bourbon burns going down, but it doesn't touch the cold spreading through his chest. His phone sits on the marble counter, screen dark. 17 missed calls. 43 unread messages. He can't bring himself to look at any of them. Because he knows what they'll say. Demanding explanations. Demanding he fix this. Demanding blood. He walks to the window. Stares down at the city lights blurring into streaks through his reflection. From up here, people look like ants. Insignificant. Replaceable. That's how he's always seen them. But tonight, one of those ants brought him to his knees. His foot catches on something near the couch. He looks down. A cleaning rag. Navy blue. Folded neatly on the floor where Janelle must have dropped it this morning before everything went to hell. He picks it up slowly, like it's evidence from a crime scene. The fabric is worn soft from use. Smells faintly of lemon cleaner and hard work. For reasons he can't explain, he doesn't throw it away. He stands there holding it, this symbol of a woman he never bothered to see as human, and her words slam into him again like a fist to the gut. I'm not your property. I'm a human being. His jaw clenches. Anger flares hot in his chest. Anger at her for exposing him. Anger at himself for getting caught. Anger at the universe for making him feel something he hasn't felt in years. Guilt. He throws the rag across the room. It lands silently on the leather couch, looking small and out of place among the luxury. But it doesn't matter, because even across the room, he can still hear her voice echoing through the marble and glass. You don't own me. And the worst part, the part that makes his hands shake and his throat tighten, is that she's right. He built an empire by treating people like numbers on a spreadsheet. By valuing profit over humanity, by convincing himself that anyone who couldn't afford to fight back didn't deserve protection. And now the whole world is watching that empire crumble Because one woman refused to stay silent. He drains the bourbon, pours another. Outside, the city keeps moving. People keep living. The world keeps spinning. But up here, 47 floors above it all, Ethan Hargrove sits alone in a penthouse that suddenly feels too big, too cold, too empty. And for the first time in his life, he wonders if winning was ever worth it. Ethan needs proof. Needs evidence that Janelle stole those files so he can bury her in lawsuits and reclaim control of the narrative spiraling out of his grip. He calls building security at 2 a.m., voice sharp with bourbon and desperation. Pull the footage. My office. This morning. 5 to 6 a.m. 20 minutes later, he's in the security office, staring at a wall of monitors while a tired guard cues up the recording. Here, Mr. Hargrove. 5:15 a.m. The screen flickers. Grainy black and white footage of his office hallway. Janelle appears, pushing her cleaning cart. She knocks on his door, uses her keycard, enters. Ethan leans closer, heart pounding. This is it. This is the moment she steals his files. The moment he can prove she's a thief and a liar and everything the lawyers need her to be. The timestamp ticks forward. 5:16. 5:17. Janelle exits his office. Cart in front of her. Hands empty. Gone in under 2 minutes. Ethan's stomach drops. That's not enough time. She couldn't have. Want me to keep going? The guard asks. Yes. Show me everything from that morning. The footage rolls forward. Empty hallway. Nothing. Nobody. Then, at 6:43 a.m., the door opens again. A woman steps into frame. Ethan's blood turns to ice. It's not Janelle. It's Miranda. Miranda Clay. His fiancée. The woman he's been dating for 18 months. The woman who smiled at him over breakfast this morning. The woman whose ring finger carries a diamond that cost more than most people's houses. On screen, Miranda glances down the hallway. Left, then right, making sure she's alone. Then she slips into his office like she's done it 1,000 times. The guard shifts uncomfortably. Sir, do you want me to? Keep playing. Miranda's inside for 6 minutes. When she emerges, she's slipping something small into her designer purse. Something that looks exactly like a USB drive. Ethan's hands curl into fists so tight his nails draw blood. She walks away calmly, confidently. Like she didn't just steal the ammunition to destroy him. The guard stops the footage. The silence in the security office feels like drowning. Mr. Hargrove? You okay? He's not okay. He's the opposite of okay. Miranda leaked the files. Miranda set him up. Miranda handed Janelle the weapon and let her pull the trigger while staying safely in the shadows. His mind rewinds through the last 18 months at high speed, searching for clues he missed. The way she always asked about his business deals. The way she insisted on having access to his office in case of emergencies. The way she smiled when he complained about difficult employees. She played him. For 18 months, she played him like a fool. When did she leave the building? His voice sounds hollow, distant. The guard checks the logs. 6:52 a.m., sir. Hasn't come back since. Ethan pulls out his phone with shaking hands. Calls Miranda. It rings once, then goes straight to voicemail. Her voice, sweet, innocent, fake, tells him to leave a message. He hangs up. Calls again. Voicemail. He opens her contact info. Checks her location sharing. Disabled. His breathing gets shallow. Panic mixes with rage mixes with something that feels sickeningly like heartbreak. He calls his head of security. I need you to find Miranda Clay. Now. 3 hours later, the report comes back. Miranda boarded a flight to the Cayman Islands at 11 p.m. last night. Hours before the story even broke. Like she knew exactly what was coming and when to run. Her apartment is cleared out. Bank accounts emptied. Social media deleted. She's gone. And she took more than just files. She took his trust. His control, his certainty that he was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Ethan sits in his penthouse as dawn breaks over Manhattan, staring at the security footage frozen on Miranda's face. The woman he was going to marry. The woman he trusted more than anyone. The woman who smiled at him while plotting his destruction. Janelle didn't steal anything. She was just the messenger. The match Miranda lit and threw into his empire before vanishing into the smoke. And somehow that's worse. Because it means everything Janelle said was true. Everything she accused him of, every file she exposed, came from someone who knew him intimately. Someone who saw exactly what he was and decided he deserved to burn. By sunrise, the story shifts. Billionaire betrayed by his bride. Hargrove empire implodes. Corporate power couples, shocking split. She leaked the files, then fled. Miranda Clay vanishes after exposing fiancé's fraud scheme. The headlines tear through the internet like a hurricane, and somehow they're worse than the first wave. Because now Ethan isn't just corrupt, he's a fool. Betrayed. Humiliated. Destroyed by the woman who shared his bed. The media feeds on it like sharks smelling blood. Talk shows dissect his relationship timeline. Tabloids dig up photos of him and Miranda at galas, at charity events, smiling for cameras while she quietly gathered evidence. Social media turns him into a meme. The billionaire too arrogant to see the knife coming. His board calls an emergency meeting. By noon, they vote him out. Suspended pending investigation. His own company, the empire he built from nothing, just erased him like a typo. Investors pull out completely. The Silverline deal collapses. Stock prices nosedive. Lawyers circle like vultures, filing suits on behalf of the 83 families he tried to displace. By evening, federal investigators announce a formal probe into fraud, bribery, and racketeering charges. Ethan's empire doesn't just crack. It disintegrates. He sits in his penthouse, watching it all unfold on the news, bourbon in hand, the world burning down around him in high definition. A reporter on CNN interviews one of the Queen's residents, an older woman, maybe 60, with kind eyes and hands that look like they've worked hard her whole life. "We thought we were alone," she says, voice shaking with emotion. "We thought nobody cared." Then this young woman, Janelle, she stood up when the rest of us were too scared. She risked everything to tell the truth. The camera cuts to Janelle's photo. The maid who brought down a billionaire. Ethan's chest tightens. For the first time, maybe the first time in his entire life, he sees what he's become. Not through his own eyes, but through the eyes of people he spent years treating like obstacles, like problems to solve, like collateral damage in pursuit of profit. He sees the faces of families he displaced, children who lost their homes, elderly people forced out of neighborhoods they helped build. He sees Janelle standing in his boardroom, shaking with fear but refusing to back down, telling him the truth he spent years running from. You destroy lives and call it business. His phone buzzes. A text from his lawyer. "We need to talk about a plea deal." A plea deal. Like he's a criminal. Which, he realizes with sickening clarity, he is. He built his empire on exploitation. On crushing people too poor to fight back. On buying politicians and inspectors and anyone else who could help him win, regardless of who got hurt. And he called it success. He stands and walks to the window one more time. The city looks the same as always, lights twinkling, traffic moving, life continuing like his world didn't just implode. Somewhere down there, Janelle is probably with her mother, probably scared about what comes next, probably still clutching that USB drive like a lifeline. But she's free, free from his control, free from pretending his cruelty was normal. Ethan sees his reflection in the glass, expensive suit, graying hair, eyes that look hollower than they did yesterday. He traded his humanity for profit, convinced himself that power and money meant winning, that the people he stepped on didn't matter because they couldn't stop him. And now he's standing alone in a cold penthouse, watching his empire collapse, betrayed by everyone who ever pretended to love him. The worst part isn't the lawsuits, isn't the public humiliation, isn't even the prison time he knows is coming. The worst part is realizing Janelle was right. He wasn't powerful. He was cruel. And cruelty always has a price. He just never thought he'd be the one paying it. The days blur together like watercolors bleeding into mud. Ethan stops showering, stops shaving, stops answering the phone entirely because every call is either a lawyer with bad news or a reporter hunting for tears. The penthouse that once felt like a throne now feels like a tomb. He stands at the window most nights, staring out at the city that used to worship him. The skyline looks different now, smaller somehow, less impressive, like someone pulled back a curtain and revealed that all those glittering lights were just covering up darkness. His reflection in the glass stares back at him, hollow eyes, wrinkled shirt, a man who looks 10 years older than he did 2 weeks ago. He doesn't recognize himself anymore. The person staring back isn't the titan who commanded boardrooms and closed billion-dollar deals. It's someone smaller, broken, someone who built everything on a foundation of cruelty and convinced himself it was strength. The news plays on repeat in the background, a constant reminder of his fall. Hargrove faces 15 federal charges. Former employees come forward with stories of abuse. Queens community celebrates as developers' empire crumbles. His name, the name that used to open doors, that used to make people stand straighter, that used to mean power, now gets spit out like poison. Parents use him as a cautionary tale. Don't be like Ethan Hargrove. Don't let money turn you into a monster. The irony would be funny if it didn't hurt so much. His lawyer keeps calling about the plea deal. 5 years minimum if he cooperates. Maybe more if he doesn't. Prison. Him. In prison. With people whose lives probably got destroyed by men exactly like him. He pours another drink. Lost count hours ago. The bourbon doesn't help anymore, but at least it makes the silence feel less suffocating. Miranda's face keeps flashing through his mind. The way she smiled when he proposed. The way she kissed him goodbye the morning before she destroyed him. The way she played him so completely that he never saw it coming. He trusted her. Actually trusted someone for the first time in years. Let his guard down. Let her in. And she gutted him for it. If you've ever trusted the wrong person and paid the price, comment never again. But here's the thing eating at him worse than the betrayal. Worse than the lawsuits. Worse than watching his empire burn. Miranda was right to do it. He was a monster. He did destroy lives. He did crush families under the weight of his ambition and call it progress. Janelle tried to tell him, screamed it in his face in front of everyone, and he tried to destroy her for it. The sun rises over Manhattan, painting the sky orange and pink, beautiful and indifferent to the wreckage below. Ethan turns away from the window. He can't undo what he's done. Can't bring back the years he spent stepping on people. Can't erase the families he displaced or the trust he shattered. But maybe he can stop being the man in that reflection. Maybe he can try to be someone he doesn't hate. 3 days later, Ethan does something he hasn't done in 15 years. He takes the subway. No driver. No security. No expensive car with tinted windows separating him from the world. Just him in jeans and a hoodie, trying to blend in with people who have no idea the disgraced billionaire is standing 3 feet away. It took his remaining assistant 2 days to find her. Janelle's not hiding exactly, but she's not looking for attention either. She's volunteering at a community center in Brooklyn, helping the families from Queens find new housing. Connecting them with legal aid, being the person Ethan never was. The subway rattles through dark tunnels, and Ethan grips the pole tighter than necessary. Nobody recognizes him. Nobody stares. He's just another tired face in a sea of people trying to get somewhere. It feels strange, liberating, and terrifying at the same time. The community center sits on a corner in Bedford-Stuyvesant, sandwiched between a bodega and a laundromat. Paint peeling off the doors. Windows that could use cleaning. The kind of place Ethan would have walked past a month ago without seeing. Now it looks like the most important building in the city. He stands across the street for 10 minutes, heart pounding, hands shaking, trying to find the courage to walk through those doors. What's he supposed to say? Sorry I tried to destroy your life? Sorry I'm a monster who got caught? Words feel useless against the weight of what he's done. But standing here forever won't change anything. He crosses the street, pulls open the door, steps inside. The center smells like coffee and old carpet. Folding tables line one wall, covered in paperwork and file folders. A handful of people sit scattered around, older folks, young parents with kids, all looking tired but hopeful. And there at the back table, helping an elderly man fill out housing forms, is Janelle. She looks different without the uniform. Younger somehow. Wearing jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back, no makeup, just her face and the quiet determination that brought down his empire. She glances up. Their eyes meet. Her expression doesn't change, doesn't soften, just locks onto him with the same intensity she had in that boardroom. The room goes quiet. People turn to look at him. Recognition flickers across a few faces. The man from the news, the billionaire who tried to destroy their neighborhood. Ethan takes a breath that feels like swallowing glass. Janelle, can we talk? She stands slowly, excuses herself from the elderly man, and walks toward him. Every step feels like judgment. When she's close enough that nobody else can hear, her voice comes out flat. Cold. You have a lot of nerve showing up here. I know. These are the people you tried to throw out on the street. Families whose lives you almost destroyed. I know. She crosses her arms, waiting. Not making this easy. Not giving him anything. Ethan's throat tightens. No guards to protect him now. No money to hide behind. Just him and the woman he underestimated standing face to face. I came to apologize. Janelle's jaw clenches. Her eyes don't waver. An apology doesn't give people their homes back. You're right. It doesn't. The silence between them feels heavy enough to crush bones. Someone behind them whispers. A phone camera lifts. The moment getting captured for whatever comes next. But Ethan doesn't care anymore. Doesn't care about optics or reputation or what the internet will say. He just needs her to hear him. Can we talk? Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Janelle stares at him for 3 long seconds. Then turns without a word and walks toward a small office in the back. He follows, hands shoved in his pockets, feeling smaller than he's ever felt in his life. The office is tiny, barely big enough for a desk, 2 chairs, and a filing cabinet that looks like it survived 3 decades. Janelle closes the door behind them but doesn't sit. Just stands with her arms crossed, waiting for him to speak. Ethan's rehearsed this 100 times in his head, had whole speeches prepared. But now that he's here, standing in front of her, every word feels hollow. Janelle, I came to apologize. Her expression doesn't change. Stone cold. Unmoved. You already said that. I mean really apologize. Not some PR statement my lawyers wrote. Not damage control. He takes a breath. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About your mother. About the families in Queens. You destroyed my community. The words hit like a slap. Sharp. Accurate. Deserved. I know. You treated human beings like obstacles. Like numbers on a spreadsheet you could erase whenever they stopped making you money. I know. You looked at me every day for 3 years and never once saw me as a person. Her voice cracks on the last word, and something in Ethan's chest breaks with it. I know. And I'm sorry doesn't cover it. There's no words that cover it. Janelle's eyes glisten, but she blinks the tears back. Refuses to give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Then why are you here? To feel better about yourself? To apologize to the Maid off your redemption tour? No. I'm here because you were right. The admission hangs between them like smoke. Ethan reaches into his jacket pocket, pulls out a manila envelope, holds it out to her with shaking hands. What's that? Your mother's deed. Fully restored. The eviction notice is voided. She owns her apartment outright now. No rent. No mortgage. It's hers. Janelle stares at the envelope like it might explode. You can't just. I already did. Signed the papers this morning. Your mother gets to keep her home. The home she's lived in for 17 years. The home you grew up in. Janelle doesn't take the envelope. Doesn't move. Her breathing gets faster, more shallow. And the other families? I'm working on it. Restoring what I can. Paying restitution for what I can't. It won't fix everything. Won't give back the years they spent fighting me. But it's a start. She finally takes the envelope, hands trembling, opens it slowly, pulls out the deed with her mother's name printed across the top in bold letters. A tear escapes down her cheek. Then another. She wipes them away angrily, like she's mad at herself for feeling anything. This doesn't make us even. I know. This doesn't erase what you did. I know. This doesn't mean I forgive you. I'm not asking you to. Janelle looks up at him, eyes red, jaw tight. Then what are you asking for? Ethan's voice drops to barely a whisper. A chance to be better than I was. That's all. Just a chance to stop being the person who hurt you. The silence stretches long enough to hurt. Janelle clutches the deed against her chest, protective, like she's afraid it might disappear if she lets go. You took everything from people who had nothing. You stepped on us like we were dirt. And now you want applause for giving back a fraction of what you stole. No. I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the fact that I ever stole it in the first place. She searches his face, looking for the lie, the angle, the manipulation. But there isn't one. Just exhaustion and regret and something that looks like genuine remorse. I don't trust you, she says finally. You shouldn't. And I'm going to be watching. If you slip up, if you go back to being that man, I'll expose you again. Good. Someone should. Janelle nods slowly, processing, deciding. My mother gets her home. The other families get theirs. You pay for what you broke. Yes. And you don't get to call yourself a hero for it. You don't get redemption just because you finally did the bare minimum of being human. I understand. She walks to the door, hand on the knob, then pauses. I still think you're a coward. Ethan meets her eyes. Doesn't flinch. You're right. She opens the door and walks out, leaving him alone in the tiny office with the weight of everything he can never take back. But for the first time in weeks, he doesn't feel completely hopeless. Because maybe being better doesn't start with forgiveness. Maybe it starts with just trying not to be a monster anymore. For weeks later, Ethan Hargrove walks into a federal courthouse alone. No lawyers flanking him. No security detail. No expensive suit tailored to make him look powerful. Just him in a simple navy blazer, white shirt, and the weight of 83 families he tried to destroy. The courtroom fills fast. Reporters, activists, families from Queens wearing their Sunday best, here to watch the man who tried to crush them finally answer for it. Janelle sits in the back row, hands folded in her lap, face neutral. But her eyes track every movement like she's memorizing this moment. Her mother sits beside her, squeezing her hand. Safe now. Home restored. But still carrying the scars of months, spent terrified of losing everything. The judge enters. Everyone stands. The formalities blur together. Charges read aloud. Procedures explained. Lawyers conferring in whispers. Then the prosecutor calls Ethan to the stand. He stands slowly, walks to the witness box, places his hand on the Bible, and swears to tell the truth. The irony isn't lost on him. His lawyer starts to speak, but Ethan raises a hand. Stops him. Your Honor, I'd like to make a statement. The judge raises an eyebrow. Mr. Hargrove, I'd advise you to consult with your counsel before. I don't need counsel for this. The courtroom goes silent. Cameras adjust their angles. Reporters lean forward, pens ready. Ethan looks out at the rows of faces. At the families he displaced. At the woman who exposed him. At the city that's waiting to see if he'll lie one more time. He takes a breath that feels like jumping off a cliff. "I'm guilty." Gasps ripple through the courtroom. His lawyer's face goes pale. The prosecutor blinks, stunned. "I'm guilty of fraud, of bribery, of using my power and money to destroy people who couldn't fight back. I built an empire that crushed families like they were obstacles instead of human beings." His voice shakes, but he doesn't stop. "For years, I convinced myself that business was war. That winning meant stepping on whoever got in my way. That profit mattered more than people." He looks directly at Janelle now. Her expression hasn't changed, but tears glisten in her eyes. "Janelle Clark stood in my boardroom and told me the truth. She risked everything, her job, her safety, her future, to expose what I'd done. And I tried to destroy her for it." The cameras flash like lightning. Phones record every word. "I was wrong. About everything. And I don't deserve forgiveness. But those families deserve their homes back. They deserve compensation. They deserve to know that someone is finally being held accountable." His voice cracks on the last word. "So I'm pleading guilty. To every charge. And I'm asking this court to use my assets to restore what I broke. Give those families their homes. Pay for the trauma I caused. Make me an example so that no other developer thinks they can get away with what I did." The courtroom erupts. Shouting, crying, reporters rushing toward the door to file the story. The judge slams the gavel. "Order. Order in this court." But the chaos doesn't stop. Because what just happened doesn't happen. Billionaires don't confess, don't admit guilt, don't throw themselves on the mercy of the system they usually buy their way out of. Subscribe if you believe people can change. The cold-hearted won't. Ethan sits back in the witness chair exhausted, empty, but also lighter, somehow. Like confessing the truth cut loose an anchor he'd been dragging for years. In the back row, Janelle wipes tears from her cheeks. Not tears of pity. Tears of something else. Something that looks like pride mixed with disbelief. Her mother whispers, "Did he just?" "Yeah, he did." The judge calls for recess. Guards move toward Ethan to escort him out. But before they reach him, he looks back one more time. His eyes find Janelle's across the crowded courtroom. He doesn't smile, doesn't wave. Just nods once. A silent acknowledgement. "Thank you for not letting me get away with it." Janelle nods back. Barely, but enough. Because maybe this is what justice looks like. Not perfect, not painless, but real. A man who built his empire on cruelty finally admitting he was wrong. Finally paying the price. Finally trying to be better than the monster he became. It won't erase the damage. Won't get back the years those families lost fighting him. But it's a start. And sometimes a start is all you get. The confession stunned the world, but the legal machine kept grinding. In the weeks that followed, Ethan Hargrove was systematically disassembled. His lawyers, now working against him to mitigate their own damage, confirmed the collapse. Silverline Development, the empire built on ruthlessness and marble, filed for bankruptcy. The penthouse, the art, the collection of rare cars, all were seized, liquidated, and converted into the $50 million restitution fund Janelle's community center was now overseeing. Ethan lost his name's worth. He became an indictment number, his face a grainy photograph on a court docket. He moved into a small rented apartment, the walls thin enough to hear his neighbors living simple, honest lives. For a man who had isolated himself with wealth, the sudden, forced proximity to humanity was a crushing weight. It was in this silence, this stark lack of luxury, that the humility truly began to set in. He was no longer a titan. He was just a person waiting for a consequence. When the sentencing day arrived, the atmosphere was a powder keg. The world expected a spectacle, a billionaire in handcuffs, a decade in a federal prison. But the judge, a woman known for her commitment to restorative justice, surprised everyone. She noted Ethan's unprecedented cooperation, his complete surrender of assets, and his active effort to restore property rights. "Mr. Hargrove," the judge stated, her voice quiet but firm, "you destroyed 83 homes. You will not pay for that destruction with years locked away at taxpayer expense. You will pay with sweat, time, and dirt." The sentence landed like a bomb. 5 years of probation, 10,000 hours of mandatory community service, working exclusively for the Queens Neighborhood Coalition he tried to displace. He was ordered to use his skills and his hands to personally rebuild, restore, and renovate the exact homes and businesses he had condemned. The courtroom erupted. Half the country cried foul. The other half called it brilliant. Was it justice? Or just a soft landing for a powerful man? Ethan sat there, hearing the word guilty one last time, yet feeling the strange weight of a second chance. He hadn't just escaped prison. He'd been given a mandatory lesson in empathy, enforced by a judge who understood that sometimes the only way to save a soul is to send it back to work. If you had the power, what sentence would you have given Ethan? Months melted into the calendar. The scent of expensive leather and polished cherry wood was replaced by the acrid, honest smell of wet paint and sawdust. Ethan's new office was the scaffolding of a brownstone in Queens, his new uniform dusty blue jeans, and a hard hat that felt impossibly heavy. He was surrounded not by yes-men, but by electricians, plumbers, and carpenters, the men and women he'd once seen as disposable laborers. They didn't worship him, they measured him by how fast he could frame a wall, or how straight he could cut a piece of pipe. He learned to use his hands. His manicured nails chipped and broke. The soft skin on his palms hardened into calluses. He wasn't giving orders. He was taking them, learning to listen to the people who knew how a house actually stayed standing. He realized that the greatest complexity wasn't in navigating a merger, but in ensuring a roof didn't leak. He was assigned to the Silverline Project's main community center, the same one he had visited to make his first apology. That's where he saw her, Janelle. She wasn't carrying a cleaning cart. She was carrying a clipboard and wearing a yellow safety vest. She was the project supervisor for the entire renovation initiative, a promotion earned by her courage and her intimate knowledge of the community's needs. Ethan was on a ladder, rolling primer onto a wall when she approached. She looked up at him, the strong midday light catching the determination in her eyes. The silence between them was dense, weighted by every argument, every betrayal, and every legal document that had passed between them. "You missed a spot by the window frame, Hargrove," she said, her voice entirely professional. No anger, no pity, just a boss addressing an employee. He climbed down, wiping sweat from his brow. "My apologies, supervisor," he replied, using the title with sincerity. She crossed her arms, a ghost of her former, uniformed self in the efficiency of her new bearing. "Never thought I'd see you doing this," Janelle admitted, the first non-work-related words she'd spoken to him. Ethan looked at the paint on his clothes, the dirt under his fingernails, and the strong walls he was helping to build. "Never thought I'd want to," he responded, the simplest, truest thing he'd ever said in his life. She studied him for a long moment, looking past the disgraced billionaire and seeing, perhaps, a very tired, very clumsy man trying to earn his way back. Then, the corner of her mouth lifted. It was the smallest, truest smile he had ever received. It was a smile not of forgiveness, but of recognition, a sign that she finally saw him, and he finally deserved to be seen. The true work of renewal, he realized, had just begun. Do you think Ethan and Janelle can never truly be friends? Or are they forever bound only by the work they now share? The 10,000 hours of community service wasn't just a physical sentence. It was a mandatory education. Ethan worked, not under the gaze of news cameras, but under the scrutiny of people who had every reason to hate him. He didn't just swing a hammer. He had to face the quiet disappointment of the families whose homes he was repairing. The old desire to give orders was gradually replaced by a humbling need to ask questions and wait for answers. One afternoon, while repainting the communal kitchen of the newly renovated center, he noticed a group of teenagers hovering outside, looking bored and restless. These were the kids who had been displaced, their education interrupted, their sense of safety shattered. Janelle approached, seeing the concern on his face. "They need after-school care and mentorship," she explained simply. "But we don't have the funding for a dedicated program manager, and the local schools are overwhelmed." Ethan paused, the paint roller still. This was familiar territory. Not the construction, but the systemic problem. He still knew how to build a budget, how to rally resources, and how to sell a vision. Only now the vision wasn't profit, it was stability. He found himself drafting a plan, not for a hostile takeover, but for a sustainable, youth-led mentorship program. He used his remaining, untapped networks, not the corporate sharks, but the few genuinely philanthropic contacts he hadn't yet alienated. He anonymously funded 2 college scholarships for displaced youth. He spent evenings teaching basic financial literacy and business planning to the teenagers, his voice no longer booming in a boardroom, but quiet and focused in a dusty classroom. He never sought headlines. In fact, he insisted his contributions remain anonymous. He was working for an audience of one, himself. Every day, the man who once barked orders learned to listen. He learned that the silence of a teenager who felt overlooked spoke louder than any shouted market report. He learned that the true value of a home wasn't the price per square foot, but the years of memories it contained. This mandatory humility was changing him, stripping away the armor of arrogance he'd worn for decades. The hard hat on his head was a symbol of forced labor, but the genuine sweat underneath it was finally becoming a sign of genuine effort. Do you think Ethan's anonymity is a sign of true change, or is he simply avoiding public scrutiny? The day the Silverline Renewal Project held its grand opening felt less like an event and more like a rebirth. It had taken 10 grueling months, but the apartment complex, once destined for demolition, now stood as a proud testament to community resilience. Every detail, from the reinforced foundation to the fresh coats of paint, was built on truth, not greed. A crowd gathered, former tenants, city council members, the ones who weren't implicated in the scandal, and countless volunteers. Janelle stood on a small makeshift stage, radiant in a crisp suit, holding the microphone. She was no longer just the maid or the activist. She was the architect of this victory. She thanked the volunteers, the legal teams, and the community for refusing to be silenced. Then she paused. Her eyes scanned the edge of the crowd, settling on a familiar figure standing near the back, blending in with a group of construction workers, Ethan. He hadn't shaved, and his hands were stained with primer, but his posture was straight. "And finally," Janelle said, her voice carrying across the plaza, "I want to acknowledge the man who, by his own actions, both created the need for this renewal and provided the means to complete it. He made a promise to this community, and he kept it. The cost of admission to humanity is honesty, and today, that bill is paid." She stepped back. The cameras focused on her, but the moment wasn't hers alone. She walked off the stage and returned holding the hand of her mother, Vivian. Vivian Clark, the woman whose eviction notice had sparked the entire confrontation, now stood before her restored home, holding a massive pair of ceremonial scissors. The moment stretched, a mother saved by her daughter's courage. Vivian's face was etched with pride and relief. She held the ribbon steady, and with one swift, decisive motion, cut it. The crowd erupted. Cheers, whistles, and the pure, joyous sounds of children laughing as they rushed toward the open door of their new, secure homes. It was a cheer for Janelle, the hero, a cheer for Vivian, the symbol, and perhaps a complicated, quiet cheer for Ethan, the man who finally gave back what he stole. Ethan stood there, feeling the warmth of the sun and the sound of that joy. He wasn't cheered for his wealth or his power. He was simply accepted as a worker who had finished his job. He had lost everything, but in this moment, he felt richer than he had ever been in his penthouse. He wasn't looking at Janelle, but at her mother, who smiled at him warmly, a gesture of simple, unburdened gratitude. That moment of human connection was worth more than $1 billion. The Silverline Renewal Project was open, built not on corruption, but on the enduring foundation of truth. Will you think Janelle and Ethan's relationship will evolve into now that their work is finished? The sound of the celebration, the cheers, the music, the triumphant noise of children exploring their safe new apartments, had faded back into the usual evening hum of Queens. Ethan stood alone at the newly paved edge of the Silverline Renewal Project site. From here, he could see the distant, glittering geometry of Manhattan, a constant, sharp reminder of the world he had lost. He wasn't thinking about the money or the power anymore. He was thinking about how small that vast city suddenly looked compared to the real, tangible impact of this one brick building behind him. A shadow fell next to him. Janelle. She wasn't carrying a clipboard this time, just a simple canvas bag slung over her shoulder. They stood in comfortable silence for a minute, two people bound together by a conflict that had destroyed one life and forged another. "It's over," Janelle said, her voice quiet but strong. "The work isn't," Ethan replied, looking down at his rough, paint-stained hands. "But the sentence, yes. My time here ends next week." Janelle nodded, acknowledging the transition. "You're free to go back to Manhattan. Rebuild the empire, I suppose." Ethan shook his head, looking back at the brightly lit windows of the complex. "I don't think I could. I used to think power meant control, controlling the market, controlling the narrative, controlling the lives of people like your mother. And now I know control is an illusion," Ethan admitted. "I was just hiding from the truth. If I ever build anything again, it won't be a tower to reach the sky. It'll be something sturdy, something real, right here on the ground." Janelle turned to face him fully, a slow, knowing smile gracing her lips. "Now you know it means responsibility," she finished for him. "The responsibility to listen. The responsibility to protect. The responsibility to make sure every decision serves people, not just profit." Ethan returned the smile, a small, weary, and deeply honest expression. "Thank you, Janelle." "For what?" "For exposing you. For not letting me get away with it," he corrected gently. "For forcing me to finally see what I was doing. If you hadn't stood up, I would still be sitting alone in that penthouse, just a richer, colder shell of a man." She looked at him one last time, a look of simple, earned peace. The debt was settled. The chapter was closed. A man found humility, and a hero found her voice. Ethan Hargrove served his full probation. He continued to live in the small rented apartment, driving a used car and taking the subway. He never attempted to rebuild his old empire. He didn't need to. He had built something better, his humanity. He founded a nonprofit dedicated to ethical urban renewal, focusing on securing affordable housing and providing transparent legal aid to communities facing displacement. His name was still mud to the corporate elite, but in the neighborhoods of Queens and Brooklyn, it slowly, quietly, came to mean something else entirely: restitution. Janelle continued her ascent. With the Silverline Renewal Project stabilized, she became the executive director of the Queens Housing Coalition. She testified before City Council, her voice calm and authoritative, advocating for policy changes that would ensure no developer could ever repeat Ethan's past crimes. She was often seen on local news not as an angry victim, but as a practical, brilliant leader who understood the system because she had fought her way through it. Their paths crossed regularly. Meetings were brief, professional, and respectful. She was the one who kept him accountable, and he was one of her most effective, if quiet, allies. The anger was gone, replaced by the profound, mutual respect of two people who had survived a war together. Ethan never saw Miranda again. She was reportedly living comfortably in a jurisdiction with no extradition treaty, having traded her conscience for eternal sunshine. But her betrayal had ultimately served a higher purpose. It was the necessary hammer that broke Ethan's control and freed Janelle's truth. The skyscrapers of Manhattan continued to dominate the horizon, symbols of ambition and greed. But in the small corners of the city, where real lives were lived and fought for, new buildings rose. Not monuments to wealth, but foundations built on justice. And those foundations were far more powerful. Sometimes it takes losing everything to find yourself. And sometimes the loudest truth comes from the ones no one listens to. Hit subscribe if you stand with truth, because silence sides with the corrupt.